My article topic was on employee handbooks. It was actually kind of difficult to find an article relating to any sort of issues or pros or cons about employee handbooks. The main thing that I found were tips on how to write them and stuff like that. I ended up finding an article titled Employers, quote unquote, Reasonable Steps No Longer Enough in Restaurant Sexual Harassment Case. It's about a federal court case that highlights the dangers posed to companies, specifically restaurant businesses, when supervisors sexually harass their employees. It happened at a Sonic fast food restaurant, and it was brought to the courts because it was not the first time that this has happened, and they felt that protective measures hadn't been taken for their employees, and therefore she took it to court. The article is about an 18-year-old female who worked as a waitress and a car hop at this Sonic restaurant, and who claimed she was allegedly harassed by her male general manager. She ended up resigning after 4 months because she felt that the behavior against her, such as she claims there was hugging, slapping, name-calling, some threatening and teasing, created such a hostile work environment that she was kind of forced to quit. The general manager, of course, claimed that it was not specific to her, it was merely horseplay, and that it had nothing to do with her gender, and that what was done was not enough to constitute a hostile work environment. However, the courts didn't see it that way and found that it was specifically towards the female employees and had nothing to do with the male employees, and therefore it was enough motivation to bring the case to court. The court ruled that the company had done everything they could to prevent the harassment and that the correct action had been taken once it was reported. And the company claims that they had all the policies and procedures clearly written in their employee handbook, stated as what needs to be done if they feel they are being sexually harassed. The company then, of course, claims that their employee did not take the correct steps to reporting this incident, and that it was basically her lack of doing that caused it to go unnoticed. The company says that they have a clearly written employee handbook, which includes a section regarding sexual harassment, and that they even had a copy of a piece of paper that the employee had signed claiming that she has read and received this employee handbook. And they also claim that there is a prominently displayed poster laying out the steps of what should be done around the workplace and what needs to be done if you feel like it's a hostile environment. However, the female employee claims that she never saw this poster and that she indeed, while she did sign the piece of paper, that she never did receive an employee handbook. So I found this article kind of interesting because, unfortunately, I do believe that sexual harassment goes on all over the place, and a lot of times it goes unreported or maybe not taken completely seriously. And there were also a few problems in this article that I found that I wanted to address. Like I said, it came to be a he said, she said kind of war, which really doesn't end well because it's basically his word against hers, and who do you believe? Because obviously someone isn't telling the exact truth. And while I do believe that sexual harassment is a serious offense and should be taken as such, I feel like both parties kind of are to blame, and they both could have done something in order to have prevented this from happening. Not necessarily the harassment from happening, but from it getting as far as it did. So the company had this piece of paper that the employee had signed claiming that she had received and adequately looked at the employee handbook. And while I feel it is the company's responsibility to get this handbook to her, I don't think she should have signed the piece of paper before she had the handbook in her hands in order to take with her. So I do feel that when she signed the piece of paper and knew that she did not have the handbook, that was her responsibility to then seek out a supervisor or a manager in order to get a handbook so that she could review it, or even once this began, that she sought someone out in order to really know the steps that needed to be taken to report it and for it to be taken seriously. I do think that the company should change their ways. I feel that they should give each employee an employee handbook, and that each employee should have a signed confirmation that they have received it. And that can be in front of a third party so that there's a witness, or maybe they just go back after. I mean, unfortunately, this has already happened, so maybe they go back in lieu of this court case. Everyone gets a new employee handbook, and you get a piece of paper signed that they have it. Just to confirm that everyone who works there has a handbook in case this were to ever happen again. And I also feel that if they could have done some sort of seminars or training sessions for this type of thing, and that this wasn't addressed until after this incident occurred. And this might, those types of training sessions or seminars would have prevented something like this from going as far as it did. So while a part of me believes that the manager is at fault, the company itself may not have done much wrong. The employee should not have signed the form stating that they received a handbook if they actually had not. And the company would see that signature and assume she has seen the handbook, and would have no reason to think that she doesn't have one. So the article really shows the need for not only the employee handbook to exist, but also that they need to be clearly written, and that there needs to be confirmation that each employee does have a handbook. If the company had done a little more work to cover themselves, they may have possibly avoided a big lawsuit. But I think the main thing to take away is really truly the importance of an employee handbook on both the employee side and the employer side, because the employers need it to cover themselves so that all the employees have a clear idea of the policies and rules and regulations, and the employee needs to have one so that they can reference it if something like this were to occur. They would know how to handle the situation.